Creepshow is a movie that slipped under my radar for some time. I first watched it some number of years ago, and I think it may be one of the most underrated horror flicks in the 80s. It was directed by George Romero and written by Stephen King. It stars an impressive lineup. Some are Ed Harris, Ted Danson, and my favorite in the movie, Leslie Nielsen. Even Stephen King makes an appearance in this story. I was also impressed that Tom Savini did all the makeup special effects. Creepshow has an interesting setup. We begin with a boy whose father is angry with him for reading horror trash, something that a lot of kids can relate to. They argue, and as the boy loses his comic and is left in his room, he peers at the window and our spooky comic host greets us. A great unique opening. Like I was saying, the movie is unique. It's an anthology of 5 short stories that are in the child's comic. This sort of thing is rarely done. The 5 stories each offer something a little different. They all have something a little off the wall, and I suspect some of it is a little tongue-in-cheek. The first story, Father's Day, warms you up with a bit of a ridiculous tale. There's this ultra-wealthy family, it seems, with a very dysfunctional history to it. Basically, this woman, Berdelia, murdered her father because he was driving her crazy. She actually visits him each Father's Day out of guilt. So things are rolling along, and you think that this may lead to another murder or trouble with the family. But then the father rises from his grave to seek revenge on his daughter. It's really out of nowhere. The father then moves on to pursue the rest of the family, whom he describes as greedy vultures. Although he's chanting "Where's my cake" the whole time, that's tough to sum up in a review. It's weird and comical. There are a lot of interesting shots, and a lot of great scenes, like this gothic spooky graveyard. The story isn't the strongest by a long shot, but it's a fun opening all the same. The next story, The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill, is a little more on the sci-fi side. It starts with a meteor crashing into Jordy's backyard. Like I was saying, Stephen King plays the role, and he's fantastic in it, really impressive. At first, Jordy fantasizes about what fortune his find could bring him, but as his excitement takes him, he unleashes a disaster. An unusual villain, that being Plant Life, begins to take poor Jordy over. As he desperately seeks relief, or better, for his situation, he hops into the tub. It all just gets worse and worse for Jordy. Really felt like a Romero film here. The radio hints at the looming danger to come for everyone else, but notice the Castle Rock sign, Stephen King's company. The third story is titled Something to Tide You Over, a suiting title for the middle story. Leslie Nielsen plays a vengeful husband, and Ted Danson the man who's having an affair with his wife. This may be my favorite of all the stories, actually. Richard, Leslie Nielsen, claims to have Rebecca, his wife, and is threatening her life unless Harry comes with him and cooperates. The energy is more in the dialogue than in the visuals, and Leslie really steals the show in this. He forces Harry into a hole and buries him up to his neck. The idea is to drown him in the tide. It's a frightening prospect. Richard leaves him there and the stage is set. The guy is so evil he actually watches this on his television at home, enjoying his plan unfold. But in the end, things take a bit of a turn. I'll leave it at that because you just have to watch. The third story, The Crate, is a mix of a monster movie and a murderous plan from an unlikely character. The story begins with Mike, the janitor, discovering a crate from 1834. It parallels with a story about a seemingly meek Henry and his bitch of a wife Billy, or Wilma. Henry is dear friends with another professor, Dexter, who is called regarding this crate. There's some great dark humor with Henry fantasizing about killing his wife, and again a little later enforcing his hatred for his wife. They sell it well because you feel no sympathy for the woman at all. The crate contains this monster who will rip you apart and eat you if you get too close. Reminds me of Leprechaun, the monster in the crate. The killings look bad on Professor Dexter and he goes to Henry for help. Henry drugs his friend and then quickly hatches a plan to take advantage of the situation. It's a sudden and well-written twist where the storylines connect and begin a new story. Wilma reads a note requesting her help from Henry. How it plays out in the end, you'll just have to find out, but it's another great ending to another great story. If you're wondering about the gore though, there's some fairly gruesome scenes, so it holds its own in that category. The last story, They're Creeping Up on You, is my least favorite out of the anthology. It's not that it's bad, I just find it's a little less interesting. There's only one location, it's very bland and sterile, but I suppose that's the point. Upson Pratt is a successful germophobic CEO. Upson refers to everyone like Bugs. I'm assuming consumed by his power. But Bugs will be his problem for the rest of the night. They creep in little by little. They slowly fill his penthouse one by one. An exterminator shows up to help, but has a mocking tone, giving me the impression that he's here often for Upson. The bug problem gets way out of control for Upson, and it's a terrifying scene with the bugs filling in. As he enters his emergency lockdown room or whatever, it strikes me that this could all be in his head, but is it? All in all, it's a great movie that I don't really hear talked about all that much. It's fairly rare that you find an anthology, but the great thing about it is, if you don't like the show, there's another one coming in about 15 minutes. My favorite would have to be Something to Tide You Over. I think it's the strongest story with the best acting. Well, nothing left to add on this movie. More top 10s and reviews coming in July. This was HMRG. Thanks for watching.